So the airport in Port Elizabeth has a new name, which is that of celebrated Khoisan leader, the former Chief Dawid Stuurman. And PE itself is now Gqeberha. This follows yesterday's gazetting of geographical names approved by change by the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa. So how do name changes affect businesses such as tourism, for example? Tshifhiwa Tshivhengwa, who's the CEO of the Business Tourism Council of South Africa, and he's here to tell us a little bit more about it. Tshifhiwa, good to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. Good morning to you and to your viewers.
So, as of this morning, it has changed. The names have changed. It is absolutely official. Does this process impact on the tourism sector?
Now, absolutely, it does have an impact on the tourism sector because, the way we do business is that we pull together itineraries that span across the country. And when you're doing those itinerary and advertising them, in many countries overseas, to our source markets, although now we are not operational, but, there are those, itineraries that are live in those markets. It does have an impact that now we have to change the itineraries. We have to, make sure that people understand, what is the former city and, the current name, same as many other places that have been changed. So it does have an impact from administrative point of view. We need to administer that. We need to make sure that from aviation to brochures to tour operators to those that are involved in tour guiding understand the changes and the changes can be implemented. So there is a bit of administration work that needs to happen in terms of changing things, in terms of printing and so forth and so on. Same applies to the car rental companies and many other tourism businesses that are involved in that part of the country. So we're going to have to do a whole lot more work. Our towns have to change a few things and so forth and so on. So that will have an impact in tourism.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it would. And I mean, the scale of name changes. So from past experience, how has the scale of name changes been on the tourism sector? And, is the tourism sector consulted at all when it comes to these name changes?
No, we're not necessarily on the table when it comes to the name changes. There are those that are involved in that. But for us, like I've said, it's the administration part of it. It's not necessarily that it's bad to change the names. Because in tourism, if you look, the world over, there are many countries that have changed many things. What's more important, I think, is that, we need to create a museum where we put all these historic materials in it so that when we do sell that part of the country, we can then direct people into the history of that part of the country so that they can understand where the city comes from or the airport or the area, the villages, and many other places that have changed, to understand where it started, how it was changed, and then how it was changed again. So it's important that that history is preserved and people are able to go there and enjoy that. If you look at many countries like Uganda, there is what we call dark tourism as an example, where people go down the memory lane to understand what has happened in the country and what has led to the changes. Same as in Rwanda and many other places. So for us, it's important that as we make these changes, we do preserve the history. We do make sure that there's a museum and people can be able to go there, and it will add into the tourism experiences in that particular part of town. So it's not necessarily that it's bad to change. There are those that are involved to change in changing the names, but I think that for us, it just has an administrative burden to make sure that, we comply, we change, certain things that we already have printed. So it will come at a cost. And that's something that everyone, we have always known. There's many places that have changed. Limpopo did a whole lot of changes, and that comes with administrative costs. But as time goes, we have to preserve the history so that people can go there and see it at the museum.
Yeah, and that's the reality. I mean, there's like you say that nobody's against name changes, and I think that it is important to cultivate and preserve history in a country. Timing, however, is of utmost importance, and let's talk about. Before we get onto the timing, let's talk about the expense associated with name changes of this kind, because you're dealing with a city like Port Elizabeth, and two airports that are changing their names, as well as other towns as well. But I think let's highlight the airports, and let's highlight the actual town or city of Port Elizabeth. That must come with a big chunk of money. How much do you estimate it actually costs to put these name changes into effect?
Look, it will be very, very hard to quantify the cost. I think what's more important is that, this comes at a time when we don't even have enough to operate our businesses. And to implement this type of changes, requires that, one has, some resources to do so. So it will take us a bit of time and also to gather, the figures that are associated with the changes. As it has just been gazetted. So it's going to take a bit of time. If you look at, the airport as an example, in the travel space, we have what we call, the airport codes. And if you look at Port Elizabeth, I think the airport code is PLZ. So we're going to have to figure out if we want to keep those codes. And the same applies when we change Johannesburg to OR Tambo. The airport code is JNB. So, it has never been changed to another, code. So it applies to the city as well, changing the city codes and so forth and so on. So that may remain with us for the foreseeable future in terms of, enacting those changes, because it goes into the global distribution systems of airlines to ensure that, if we're changing that, it is known the world over so that people don't make mistakes in terms of booking the flights that goes into that destination, into that city. So we're going to have to be very careful when it comes to that. The cost around it is going to be, very big, for tourism businesses and other related businesses. You can imagine those that have printed T-shirts that are in the informal economy of tourism. They printed paraphernalia, the T-shirts and every other, things that they sell, be it at the beachfront or the stores. So they may have to change that. But again, it doesn't have to preserve that and say, well, this is what the name used to be, and this is the new name. We're going to have to implement some clever, marketing tactics to make sure that the stock that already exists in the formal and informal market of paraphernalia, it's sold and, people recover their income. So it comes with those type of things. But again, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that administratively, and from the things that we already printed, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And this comes at a time when, we are struggling as tourism businesses. As PE or the new name that I'm still practicing, by beach closures. And, it comes at a time when we are really slowly recovering. Yeah. But again, for us in tourism, it is exciting. It is something that we can implement. We can tell history and we can tell stories about it.
Yeah, I mean, trust me, that's what we've been practicing this morning as well. That's been the word of the morning that we've been trying to get our tongues around, which is, I keep on emphasizing it's not a bad thing to change names and to embrace our cultural history, which is a wonderful thing. But I'm looking. I was just trying to do a little bit of research in terms of how much it costs, and I know that there was an article, and this is from, I think this was from 2017. I'm not too sure when it was. No, 2018, and they were estimating a cost because, and I know it's still a talk of changing Cape Town International Airport's name, and economists had thrown a number of like 20 million rand around. A minimum of 20 million rand is what it would cost to change that airport. We know that's a major hub. The airport in Port Elizabeth obviously is not as busy as Cape Town, but it still comes with associated costs. Now, yesterday we had unemployment figures coming out for the entire country, but when we look at the Eastern Cape alone, this constitutes the highest unemployment rate in the country with no opportunities, and it just appears that there's no way of getting out of it. Small businesses are closing down, the cities are falling apart. You speak to residents in those areas where, photographs of streets and towns and, the complete derelict of these cities is there. It's noticeable, it's tangible, and yet the priority is to change names. These are questions people are asking, and rightfully so.
No, look, absolutely. If you look at many parts of the Eastern Cape province, as an example, from tourism point of view, I believe, personally that it's a giant, but there hasn't been development, in that part of the country, that will attract more tourists into the country and therefore, have a huge impact on unemployment. I mean, you've got a large coastline, and you've got, places like your East London, of which, there still has to be more work that needs to be done in the city, and to clean it up and make sure that, it is, the city that can be a preferred destination. It has everything that a lot of people are looking for. So I do believe that, there is still a huge potential in the Eastern Cape to develop tourism, develop infrastructure that's related to tourism, and perhaps put a large resort, a mega resort that can attract a whole lot of players that are, coming from, also disadvantaged backgrounds that can play a huge part in making sure that, that province is developed from the tourism point of view. I mean, it's almost like a sleeping giant if you look at it. But we need to make sure that we cultivate it. We need to make sure that there is development, and we need to make sure that from tourism point of view, that it is a preferred tourist destination, but there has to be products across the entire province that people will be able to travel for leisure tourism, both domestic and international travelers. And again, you're right. A lot of people will ask, is this the right timing in terms of, changing names? I would assume that this has been in the works for quite a number of months, if not years. And I would assume that there has been consultation with the communities and those that stay, within the cities and many places that have been changed. And I would assume that there's been majority of people, they've had consensus that this has to be changed. Unfortunately, like you said, it comes with a cost. And the cost is something that we have to deal with it. And for us, the timing cannot be any worse in terms of having money to implement these changes. So it's going to take a little bit of time for us to catch up on that and to make sure that, we are therefore complying with the name changes, and we are telling the tourists the history of the city and why the new changes and so forth and so on. So the timing is not so great. But once again, I do believe that there may have been wider consultation across the communities and people that live in that part of the country. Yeah. But for us in tourism, it will come with a cost administratively. It will need us to change the, many things that are along the value chain to make sure that we do comply. Again, as I've said, preserving this history and putting it into a museum and making sure that we create a tourism product on the basis of this. I think it will go a long way, when people arrive in those cities, to say there's one additional product that is hiring few more people into the value chain, that we are putting out there for people to go and see. So there is, a cost part of it, there is an opportunity part of it, and we need to figure out how do we make sure that it works. But, I'm sure that the communities and the people that have been advocating for this are quite excited that these changes have been enacted. And probably they are looking forward to making sure that people understand why and give them the history of why these cities, these airports, these villages, and many other places are changed to these names.
Yeah.
It is something that they may be very excited about. But for us, there is a bit of cost, but there is opportunity as well.
Indeed there is. So I just want to wrap this up because we want to get our viewers' responses. We've asked this particular question on social media. We'll look at those tweets right now. But if you can, very, very quickly, we've got the Finance Minister delivering the budget speech this afternoon. We know how the tourism sector has been hit. You've been calling specifically for a faster rollout of the vaccine so that people will come back and visit South Africa. People are very, very scared of this particular strain that was found here in South Africa. There's also, people that don't want to visit the country, and we are not allowed to visit other countries. So what are you hoping comes out of the budget today for you, if you can, very, very quickly?
Look, there are a couple of things that, we hope that comes out of the budget. The revamping of the government guarantee loan scheme. We want it to favor tourism. And we want the rules for tourism businesses, to be different to other businesses, because our recovery is going to be medium to long term. And therefore, we believe that, the rules have to be engineered in a way that, tourism businesses, both big and small and independently owned, can benefit from government guarantee loan scheme. That will help to strengthen the supply side of tourism. Number two, the issue around the UIF TS program. Of course, we're going to be impacted, in a longer term, And we do hope that we do get support from the Minister of Finance to say that, we can extend this for the industry that's hardest hit, i.e. the industry that I represent, which is tourism. We're hoping that that comes out. And also we do hope that the issue of start and stop, the Minister of Tourism of Finance must talk about it in terms of how it impacts the economy. The fact that when tourism and hospitality is not fully operational due to restrictions, be it of the beaches, be it of alcohol or curfew, how it impacts the economy, and how we need to have a better way of managing the pandemic in terms of the restriction while we're balancing the lives and the livelihoods. I think that that has to come out from the speech so that, economy can be boosted. For us, is that, those things are quite important. And also the budget for marketing tourism. The Department of Tourism budget cuts, last year was about R1 billion. So we hope that that comes back and we are able to market South Africa as a tourist destination as we anticipate people starting to travel again because vaccination rollouts in many other markets out there is happening.
Tshifhiwa, thanks very, very much. Tshifhiwa Tshivhengwa is the CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, talking to us about, firstly, geographical name changes that were gazetted yesterday, and of course, expectations and hopes from the budget for today. So, let's quickly look at your views and opinions on these name changes, the reaction. Port Elizabeth Airport is now Chief Dawid Stuurman International Airport. East London is now the King Palo Airport. Port Elizabeth itself is Gqeberha. Uitenhage is now Gqeberha, King Williamstown is Tonse, and Maclear, what was it I said wrong? Oh my gosh, Tonne, and Maclear is now
We're going to spend quite a while getting our clicks together here.
I'm in a click quandary at the moment, but I'm quite enjoying it actually. But anyway, that's just Maclear is now Kankwahu. Let's have a look at your reaction. Oh, I don't know if I'm getting this right.
Siyabonga says, it's sad how these can create useless things to make sure that they chow taxpayers' money. This is going to cost millions of rands. Write your name in people's hearts instead of writing your names in streets.
Paul saying, it is really going to make a difference what we think, or is it really going to make a difference what we say or what we think about? The government will do anything they want. I suppose there are people connected to government officials that will benefit out of it.
So Sizwe says, I'm from PE, born and raised together with a lot of others, feel this is stupid and also nonsensical. The expenditure that would be used for this stupid project could have gone to much needed projects in our beloved Ibai and surroundings.
Mutwanamba saying, if it boosts our economy, it's fine, we can change. Maybe more, but if it is for dignity, please leave it alone and focus on building our economy.
Boss Lady Doll says, waste of money. There are more important things that are on a standstill. This money can be useful in other sectors.
And then last one, Luyanda, it's a good move proposed ages ago by the EFF, just that dragging feet can result into this. The government doesn't approve things on time. It's a good move, but at the wrong time.
And I think that's the overall sentiment. I think people get that there is, of course, merit in getting rid of all the colonial names. However, the timing of it is what is questionable at this stage.
It is. And this was open for comment a while ago, a few years. So it's nothing that just sprung up on us. But I just don't think these are the things we need to be reading now when...
Doesn't it remind you of the Dolly Parton